and after the introduction of these new systems, did you improve it?
I think so. One of the things Akmal, that is that over 16 years of doing it, I think it's not that anything was done improperly when I started and now it's running great. I think it's hard for me to say that. But what's been the challenge is that it's harder to do business today than it was 16 years ago. There's more rules, there's more regulations, and it's constantly changing. The environment is constantly changing, so our training procedures need to constantly change to keep up with the changing environment, which we did very well.
Great, great. Right. So you mentioned that you oversaw finance as well, and
Yes.
how did you ensure financial transparency and like effective P&L management?
Right. I'm sorry, I missed you on how did I ensure, and then before the P&L.
Financial transparency and effective P&L management?
Yeah, financial. I can tell you how we what we would do is we created my controller was in charge of making sure that all the checks went out. My name was on every check, so I didn't sign every check, but the checks had my signature on them. But so what we would do is we had an ongoing financial statement. We had P&Ls that worked for whatever period you need. We had a system in place that we used that I liked very much. And there's a grocery store company called FMS that does that manages our P&L, and we oversaw that. So what we would do is and it's not easy in this world today to make sure you make money. We needed to make sure that we brought in more than we wrote checks for. But what we would do is we would budget. We would do labor budgeting. And we would do purchase budgeting. We would give guidance to anybody who spent any money within the company, whether it's spending money making a schedule for employees, and those are extremely tricky things because we have a team. We like to call them our family. You want to make sure you're giving them enough hours and enough benefits for them to be able to stay with you. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you do it right so that you can still make money. So, we had a budget in which we needed to adhere to, and so that's how we did that.
Okay, perfect. And how many locations and storage facilities did you provide this financial?
We had a couple of off-site storage facilities. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
We had a couple of off-site storage facilities, and then at the same time, we would also have satellite operations that we ran for the Park District and other food venues. We ran the beach. We did the Park District. All of these different things. They would come to us and hire us, and we would go ahead and staff those operations and sell food in those, like the golf courses, the beaches. I just call it the Park District, but those different areas. So we had in the summertime, you have a staff of people, usually college students that are home for college, and we would make sure that they had the proper amount of food and health and sanitation skills to be able to run those things.
Okay. In the vendor management role, did you resolve any vendor management related communication gaps, etc., like the whole process?
Yeah, well, it's constantly, and we the number one vendor that we have is every grocery store has primary warehouse in which they buy from. And so and in the Chicagoland area, there's been a shakeup in that. So what we have had to do through the years is to make sure that we're buying from the right people, and there are extensive contracts in which you sign to be able to make sure that you're buying as much as, but I can't really say that there was problems. But what I can say is there was a company called Central Grocers in the Chicagoland area that went belly up. What's a good way of saying it? They ceased to exist, and it caused the entire Chicago area, anybody that was buying from them, it caused them to scramble to be able to find new places to buy their food from. So those were challenges, but those things happen throughout, and I would say that my job was to ensure that there was a steady supply chain of supply to be able to make sure that we can continually do business.
Right. You mentioned that a major supplier went out of business, and how did that impact your company, and how did you recover from that?
Well, we had to find another one pretty quickly, and there's complexities that are involved in that I don't know whether you may be able to put it in a sentence, but for example, when you buy from these big companies, you need to give them money. You need to pay that. You need to give them money up front, and you buy stock in that company because what they do is they're called cooperatives. So these grocery stores, they own a little bit of stock in these big companies. You have a say as to who's working for those big companies, and at the same time, you create a seamless supply. Well, what happened was that the Central Grocers, when they ceased to exist, all of that money in the stock that we owned that got frozen. But so what we did was we continued to buy, and we stopped paying them. So when it ended up, we got notice that they were no longer going to be able to deliver. We were even with them, which was a great task. There was a lot of grocery stores that went belly up because of it. But what we did is we made sure that we managed it. But that's something that I don't think we want to tell anybody about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any forecasting related problems during the vendor management process? Like there were some inaccuracies regarding the company requirements, etc., that you addressed?
No, not off the top of my head. I can't think of any inaccuracies in forecasting that we had. We were very blessed to have very steady business, and we've been involved in this business for 40 years, so we know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So we have a very good idea of on our end what's going to happen, and we just make sure we communicate well with those vendors to make sure that they know.
Okay, perfect. How many direct reports did you have too?
Direct reports, I would say 15. 15 to 20, and then underneath them, they had their direct reports.
Okay, so they were indirect reports, right?
Those were indirect would be that bigger number that we talked about.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
But because I came from a fairly larger company before this, I set everything up to be able to make sure that there was the chain of command in which I made sure everybody had somebody to talk to.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
You mentioned something that really that was very interesting. That you mentioned that you treat the team as a family. Does that have anything to do with an exceptional organizational culture? And did you have any part in developing that?
Yes, it developed sort of organically, but the thing is that as you start to see people who have been working with you for 20, 25 years, it's something that you realize that you need to highlight. But one of our slogans was "Our family serving your family," and people feel good about going to a place where they know that that their employees are being well taken care of and treated like family.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so I mean, we would handle health insurance and other benefits for employees that we were not required to do, but we did because we felt it was the right thing.
Okay. So it's not just about the customer satisfaction. It's also about internal, like employee satisfaction as well.
I believe those two things go hand in hand.
Right. Um, did you help transform the retail store culture, like from low operational performance to like a higher one? Like you spotted like some discrepancies and then you resolved them and that resulted in higher like sales, revenues, etc., more operational efficiency.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that anything was ever being done wrong, that I was able to go in and fix. I think that more importantly is highlighting things that didn't exist at all and then going ahead and introducing it into these boxes. I mean, most recently we've seen a demand for high-end cheese, imported, very expensive cheese. When I started, we sold Kraft cheese sticks. Today we have thousands of SKUs with cheese experts that are there all day long cutting cheese and putting them in beautiful cases for customers. So I would say it's more about highlighting the opportunity that didn't exist before. But I have not, I can't say that there was conflicts or that there was anything being done wrong. I would just say that it just wasn't being done.
Right. Right. Um,
I mean,
on the market.
back when we started, back when I came back to the company back in 2004, there was, a random few pieces of organic items in the store, and organic has taken off to the point where it's 25, 30% of produce. It's probably more like 40. So those are areas that our customers were telling us that they wanted that. So we went ahead and organized our business and rearranged things in order to bring those things to our customers. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely, definitely. So you're basically developing a new market, right?
Yes, exactly. Developing new markets within our market.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. And did this help you like develop a good competitive advantage over your
Yes,
competitors?
we think the best.
Okay. And how did the metrics like result better than your competitors, etc.? Can you talk a bit more about that?
How does the metrics affect our competitors?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, we've seen people we've seen people come into our market and not last very long. We had a company come in from some Wall Street guys built 30 grocery stores across the country called Mrs. Green's Organic Market, and they put a store directly in between my two grocery stores. It spent $6 million to put it in there, and and they had very deep pockets, and it scared us a little bit, but we put them out of business in about 6 or 8 months, and we crushed them. I went in and bought all their old equipment and took their good employees, and now they work for the company.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and that's because they did not focus on what was important, which is customer service. They were sitting in Napa Valley or in New York City or wherever they were, and they did not go and visit the stores. They thought that they could get it done without that, which was major miscalculation on their part.
Exactly. If you're not there, like just like you guys,
We call it on-premise ownership, and that's one of our
that,
competitive advantages. Although I would prefer not to go do that in the future unless somebody was to buy a grocery store for me. But I can certainly, I think I can instill those values in a team, though.
okay. Perfect. Okay, so regarding customer service,
Yes,
I wanted to talk about some of the KPIs that you probably track.
yes.
Do you use any scores like CSAT, NPS, etc. to measure customer satisfaction?
No, no. I think that's a good question, and we never used any. Our indicators were based on talking to the customers, saying, "How was your experience today?" Our key performance indicator was dollars per customer and customer count. Those were the things that we really focused on. But we, now that there's social media and other things, we would read those and we would look for negative posts and things like that. But I don't recall ever doing any surveys. That's sort of, we always thought that was something that people did there at the stores.
Okay. Perfect. Were you able to reduce any markdown losses? Were there markdown items, etc.?
Yeah, markdown items. What does that mean? You mean like things that we would sell at a lower price to get them out of the
Exactly.
store?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do that every day.
Okay.
We
Um,
had to do it in a very tasteful way because of the clientele.